Okay, and when you do create a new staff profile, it takes you through what each of the items is, and then it also takes you through the permissions. So when I select this box, what does it permit this staff member to do? Now, if you make a mistake, no big deal. You can go back and rectify that simply by editing their profile and changing it and turning off that permission that you gave them permission to see. So if anything, if you give permission to staff and you find that it's a problem, then just go and edit that profile and make that change. So having as an administrator, having a read of this is going to be important so that you start to get a feel for what it's like to create a staff profile. Now, we help you initially create all your staff profiles, create all your administrative profiles. It's an idea to know what's behind all of that and what is behind a profile. And then these are, and this document will help you in doing so. It'll help you with editing a profile, and it'll help you with creating new. We don't delete, by the way, we don't delete. We don't use the delete very often at all, in fact. And so profiles don't get deleted, they get deactivated. So if somebody leaves, you don't want them to be able to log in anymore, you deactivate their profile and they can't log in anymore. Okay, hopping back over to this. Now, other things that you're going to want to be mindful of is we provide a lot of sample content. So sample canned messages. What are canned messages? Canned messages are somebody, you're having a conversation with a client. It's messages that you can select that are already pre-populated, pre-op, right? They're ready to go. You just select it and it fills the box and send it, and it's super easy and efficient. Now, canned messages are important because, as you'll see in the user interface, they are organized in a certain way so that you can use a pull down to select different groups of canned messages. So we enable you to build and add as many canned messages as you like and group them in as many ways as you'd like. So you'll need to decide how best to handle it. Do we want to have just one list of canned messages? Do we want to have them in groups? If we want to have them in groups, what are our groups? It's kind of thinking along the lines of the taxonomy in a way, right? And how the taxonomy works, and the setting up your canned messages consistent with encounters and how our encounters work, and then having maybe certain canned messages in groups that then you can turn off that group if it becomes unnecessary. For instance, if you know that during certain times of the year you're going to be providing live help about this topic, but then this topic is irrelevant for the other 8 months of the year. So rather than having those canned messages visible for those 8 months, you flip them and turn them off so that they're not bothering anybody and they're not, accessible. Tax season comes to mind if you do any work in that category. But there's a lot of, during the winter months, you might have utility services that are really in high demand. But during the summer months, why have that be something that you're looking through and trying to figure out, do we need to use this or not, right? Just turn it off. So we give you samples of what others use. Ultimately, it's going to be up to you to decide what canned messages you have, and then what canned messages you're going to use with your service. We also permit personal canned messages. So you can give permission to a specialist to create their own groups, and then when they log in, they see their canned messages versus other specialist canned messages. So it's really neat. It's a lot of flexibility and a lot of capacity there. So you'll want to have a think on that for a bit. That's why I think, with the samples, we don't bore you to death with as many as there truly are. We just kind of get you started and give you an idea of what is there, what can be used, so that you start to think in terms of what canned messages are going to be good for us. Now, you might also want to reach out to your colleagues and say, hey, what are you guys doing for canned messaging? So that Maybe you work and you develop your CAN messages consistent with how some of your partners or some of your colleagues are developing theirs. Okay, and then there's other things like sample opt-in messages, right? What when somebody texts you, what do we tell them, right? There's a first couple of messages that can be completely automated. Now, one of the things that we now support is an automated lookup of the county. Some 211s want that. Some 211s don't. So if that's something that's of interest to you, go ahead and let me know, and I can give you an example of what that would look like. Somebody texts their zip code, we would populate their profile with their county, and if their zip code is split across multiple counties, then we would prompt them to answer what county they're in. So if that's something that you guys are interested in utilizing, we can support that as well. And then these are examples here of what other 211s use for their opt-in messages. And the opt-in message is that first greeting, that initial response back. And you can also use multiple CAN messages, right? It doesn't just have, you can also use multiple opt-in messages. It doesn't just have to be one message. It could be, thank you for texting us. We'll be with you shortly. In the meantime, please tell us a little bit more of why you're texting today. Or in the meantime, please tell us your gender, age, and the reason for texting today. So you can gather information before you even open the case to then respond to the client. You guys decide what's your opt-in message. Right now, what are we saying? We're saying that live help is coming soon, or it's not available at this moment. However, you can call us, call 211, or you can visit our online database, and we provide a link to your online database. We'll have a look at that in a moment. So that's your temporary opt-in message. Well, when you go live, we're going to be swapping that message out with your live messaging. So that opt-in message is, those samples is to get you started. You might, again, also reach out to your colleagues to see what they're doing, and maybe utilize some of what they're doing, or take ideas from their opt-in messages and build your own. So the work in getting started really zeroes in on those two areas, opt-in messages and CAN messages. And then there's some promotional information, or how to, examples of programs that other 211s do, right? They don't, so 211s use it for information and referrals, sure. But what else do they do? Phone text referrals, right? So sending referrals to people who are on the phone, who you're talking to, using 898-211 as the vehicle for that. It's a wonderful thing, right? It's a sure route to that mobile phone. There's no gray route involved there, right? It's going directly to that mobile phone, which is fantastic because you get a delivery receipt. You can validate that it got delivered. The end user is delighted. They now have all of those referrals that you were going to dictate back to them, but now it's on their smartphone. So they've been blessed, right? They now have all access to all of those referrals, boom, right there on their phone. Click that URL, open up their browsing, click the number, start a conversation, click the address, open up their maps. So wonderful. So texting referrals, big deal, and we're supporting phone to text referrals, right? And some of these other projects, you're like, oh, well, we aren't going to do that. We're not going to do that. These are just examples, ideas, things that you might consider doing down the road. All the functionality in the programs that are highlighted here are examples of things that you can do yourselves, right? That as an agency, you also, 211, have the ability to build this capacity into your user interface. So have a look at that, because that will give you an idea of where you might want to go down the road. And then there's some sample JPEG banners. This is just content that others have developed, and then 211s have developed and had us develop, and so it's open source, right? It's them saying, other tools saying, we built a poster, or we built this takeaway card, or we built this banner that we put on our website, and other 211s are welcome to use it. Open source stuff. Anyone can use, download it, rebrand it, put their own logo on it, whatever you guys want to do. And it's just examples of what others have done. And so this might be a starting place for marketing. If they're interested in, well, what are we going to do? We're going to post it on our website so people can text us, but we also want to do this, this, or this. And so here are some ideas. Here are some survey examples. Now, these examples are very simplistic. A survey can be very complicated potentially. You can have, for instance, there's some 211s that are doing SNAP screening. And in some cases, there's a 211 outfit in Wisconsin that has a food bank referral assistance utility that is something like 12 questions long, right? Because food banks are very coveted, and that they're only offered during certain times, and that you can't have gone to the one that you're going to get in the last 72 hours. I mean, a lot of rules and regulations tied to it. So they found that screening individuals for this and then providing those referrals in an automated way is a really good and efficient way to handle that really complicated bit of information. But a survey can also be a simple quality assurance survey. Were you satisfied with the service? Would you recommend it to a friend? So texting surveys work really well. They're super effective. We just did a news on our blog, a news story on a research project that is all about exactly that, using text messaging as a survey tool. And so you could pop over to our website under our news and read about that. It's a study that was done in conjunction with New York School, New School in New York, University of Maryland, University of Michigan. A bunch of institutes got together and they studied the efficacies of using text message instead of phone. It's amazing what you can accomplish with text, and a survey is oftentimes more readily responded to. People tend to be more honest when they respond by text, and so there's a lot of benefits to doing that. And we provide just kind of examples of how potential surveys you might use. Again, something you might want to reach out to colleagues and say, hey, are you guys doing any surveys? If you have, can you give me the sample of the content that you're providing, and get a jump start there. Or not, you can ask us for more samples of other surveys. We're happy to send you other samples of other surveys. But this is just kind of to give you an idea of how a survey can be used, and really nice, efficient way. Like a quality assurance could happen with every encounter, and you could have it start 1 week after the encounter happened, and you're just collecting that data. 1 week after encounter happens, you're asking them, hey, did you follow up on the service? Did you contact any of the referrals that we provided? Would you recommend the service? So that type of quality assurance doesn't have to be just moments after. It can also be delayed. So there's a great deal of functionality there, and it can be used as a precursor to an encounter. You can screen somebody using text. So a lot of stuff. So have a think on that. There might be surveys that are already in your pipeline that you're working on that you use maybe, and that can be converted easily into a text message. Go ahead and let us know and send us a copy of whatever you've got, and we'll have a look at it. And if it works, put it up. The main thing you want to be mindful of is they can't be open-ended or open box text box, because the survey has to trigger the next response. And so it's got to be some sort of either multiple choice or yes, no, or one of those style Likert, one of those style surveys where we know what the potential response is going to be. With things like with things like the, but you know, those can get pretty complicated. And if you're interested, I could send you a copy of what that food bank screener is, because yeah, it's amazing, you know, you can accomplish just by you know, creating these well, bot chat is what it's referred to now as. So it's just questions that are strung together, and one leads to the next. And we'll help you if you, like I said, if you've got a survey that you want us to look at, go ahead and send it over.
That's great. Yeah, we
all right.
have a survey, and I think it'll work for this. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you know, 211s are really starting to dig in on this, and we're seeing more and more interest here. I think it's just there's a greater demand than there was before, and it's partly driven by you know, funders and wanting more information, outcome data, you know, and you guys are going, well, we're having a hard enough time making outcomes, right? But outcome data is now much more of a something that's sought after, and so if text can help with that, then that can be a really good thing. And that's some of the trends that we're seeing, is text can be helping with that. Okay, and so a couple other things, blog posts, stories about 211, where we don't stick things in there that aren't relevant to what you guys are doing. And then you know, that's kind of it. Now, logging in. So we are when you get your profile, what it is your email address and then your password. Now, you can have the password that we assign to you, and you can keep that password, and that's your password, or you can reset your password. The reset option is right over here. So, forgot your password, this is the link to either reset or find your password. And so, very easy to reset that temporary password. Just follow the little steps that it takes you through. It sends you a link, and then you click that link, and then that link opens up to a little page that says, okay, now enter your new password, and then enter it one more time, and then it saves and confirms, and then you're able to use that new password. When you log in, you come to whatever page you were looking at last. So, and this is the attributes, right? And this can be moved around. This is all of the elements that are tied to the phone number that I'm looking at. So right down the middle of the page is where the conversation runs. And over here is your queue. And your queue, you know, you can change as many, look to as many as 15 in the up to 15. You don't have any. That's as many as you have. But all the way down to just the top 3, right? So kind of like how your email inbox works. You can look at the most recent 10 or 15 or 20, same thing. And then the green indicates the case that I'm looking at. And then the case that I'm looking at, when I'm clicked on it, I will see all of the conversations that have happened so far with that phone number. So far we've got a zip code that was texted May 31st, and we've got another zip code that was texted on November 27th, right?
Yeah, this is our staff.
So, okay, there you go. And then, so these are all your staff testing it. Okay. And then, so as you see, as I scroll through here, these over here, this is the data markers, right? These are the attributes, the client attributes, and any notes that you make about a client. If I make a note, for instance, provided food assistant, you know, this might be a combination of a few things. You know, you might be utilizing data markers, but then also make a note, right? I mean, you're all familiar with getting live support or getting help with a particular issue, service provider, and they go, well, let me look at my notes. And if they have good notes, then they won't have to go over all of the problems and all of the things that led up to why you're talking to them today. notes are kind of in that same vein, where if the specialist deems it necessary to summarize the encounter by entering a note, well, then that next time that person gets help, it's going to be that much easier to provide them with help. And if it's something related to a resource that can't be utilized more than a certain amount of times, well, creating a note might be really helpful, because why go down that path if they're not even going to qualify for that referral? So adding a note, simple, just pop the little green button, and then it goes up. It automatically saves date and time. Now, this is not the text box for the conversation. This is the text box for the notes. The conversation only happens when I open a case. So I can view as many cases as I want. I can change the attributes of a case. I can do a lot of things. I can assign a survey. We don't have any surveys set up right now, but I could assign a survey to a client without being open on their case. To have a conversation with a client, well, that's when I would click that open button, right? And then over here on my right are my canned messages. And then this is my text box. So now I'm ready to have a conversation. Now, what's changed about the queue? Well, if this case was down here, it'd pull it to the top. It says that now this case is no longer in an unopen or unconversation status. It's now open, right? It's in the beginning, the first stage of a conversation. It has yet to go in progress. So if you liken it to phone support, well, the phone rings and I answer it. That's what opening a case is, answering that phone. We know that they've got the first greeting, that first bounce back message, whatever that greeting is. If we're answering a couple questions, we can open up a case before they answer that question. And then maybe they don't answer that question, right? That automated first question. So maybe in your canned messages, you have that automated first question duplicated, so that if you know you need to get out that information right off the bat and they don't answer it, well, then maybe it's sending that or a version of that information in a question again. Now, as soon as I send a greeting to the client, right, as soon as I select either a canned message or I type a message and I click send, that's going to change it to in progress. I'm going to opt in for my own phone so that I'm not texting one of your staff and they don't know what the heck's going on. We go here. I'm going to pop open all I'm doing is I'm pulling open my phone. I'm pulling open my texting application. I have prior text messages to 898-211. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put my zip code in here and send my zip code to that. Something interesting while I do this is 60% or higher return rates on texting. So high return rates. When people get help by text, they tend to ask for more help down the road. Now, a lot of reasons that could be that way for a lot of reasons, right? It could be that the end user that you're helping is a little bit younger, or maybe earlier stage of their life where they have needs that span over a period of time, longer period of time, or it could just be that they felt that it was an easy way to get the support, right? I mean, it's a lot of different ways, things that could explain that. But the fact is that 60% or higher return rates is pretty remarkable. So there's a good likelihood that when you help someone one time, that they text you one time, that they're going to text you again. I'm just going to pick the very first zip code that I see in this list here, 14867. 14867. Now, if I put a zip code that isn't in your service area, well, it's not going to go to your queue. Simple as that. If I put a zip code in that's unsupported, it gets a bounce back message that says either call 211 or put in another zip code. So you really can't get trapped. You can't get lost. It's pretty foolproof. Like, you know, even and zip code tends to work really well. Even if you don't know your zip code or you don't have a zip code, you can always ask a buddy, hey, what's our zip code, right? And they'll give you a zip code and you text that zip code. So it hasn't posed many problems at all. Most people can do that. And then when they come into the queue, well, then we see that, and I can see here that I did some testing. I texted this zip code before, then I opted out. And as you can see there, that's that opt-out message. You've successfully unsubscribed, won't get any more messages. Well, then I texted again, 14867 today. And here I am in the queue. And then I pop to the top of the queue. I can scroll over here, and I can see the recent incoming messages. So you can learn a lot just by looking at the little tooltips that pop up. And then when I open up this case, well, then now I'm responding to this case, 831, and this case, you see. So I've got two cases that are open. So my response palette or my response slate has two conversations in it now because I'm open and conversing with two people. I could close this case and not have it be two conversations, right? I could just have one conversation, but the capacity is there to support multiple concurrent conversations. And guess what? Each conversation updates. So my primary updates, but then also any secondary conversations that I have in the background update as that person texts back, which is really nice because then I don't even have to view that and work in that conversation until I see that they've texted back. So, managing the queue, determining how many conversations you can have, all of those things need to be, those decisions, are going to need to be made. You might, want to put a limit on that and say, well, nothing over 2 concurrent or nothing over 3 concurrent or whatever, you guys want to do with that. But the capacity is there to respond to multiple. And then when I select a message, and then I can look here on my canned messages. I think these are the ones that we are setting up these days as sort of just examples. We group them for you. So in progress, closing, follow up, right? All of this is just kind of examples, right? This isn't meant to be your final canned message by any means, just examples. When I send a message out to the phone number that I want to send it to, then I just click send. And then it updates here as grayed out initially because we're sending it. That send is in progress. When I scroll over the timestamp and it becomes a sent message or a delivered message, well, then it gets that delivery verification. And that's carrier grade. So AT&T let us know, we got you that message. That act is them acknowledging receipt of it. That delivered is them actually saying or doing that delivering it to that mobile phone. So if somebody ever rings you up and says, you were supposed to text me referrals and you didn't do that, you can say, well, what's your mobile number? And then you can go and you can look at their delivery stamps. And you can see, well, actually at Eastern time, we delivered. Your carrier verified it. Well, so then it's about whether or not you've got the right mobile number. It's not whether or not you delivered the message. You can go to the bank on that. That's carrier grade. So it's as good as that person, or almost as good as that person ringing you up and saying, I'm looking at my phone right now and I have a text from you. Because when the carrier says so, it's pretty solid that it got delivered. It might be that somebody's having trouble reading, or they don't have, they've exhausted space or something like that. But usually we get an error if that message is unable to be presented on their phone in a legible way. So really good evidence that messages get delivered when you get that timestamp. Okay, so when I'm in conversation mode, well, then it's just having a conversation with the client and completing that conversation. I can isolate my conversations so that I'm just looking at the ones that I'm working in the queue, so that I'm not bothered by the other cases while those are going on. I can toggle quickly, very quickly, between my cases. Super simple to do. And so you'll find that working with this application is going to really lend to providing some support at maybe a little higher frequency than you're used to. And that, that might be really good for you guys. You might find that offloading some of your call volume onto texting might be a real good thing. It might really help you out. As far as staff and what staff, how they interact, and we get really good feedback on usability of the application, its functionality. It's not the prettiest to look at, but its functionality is very much intuitive, right? It's user friendly, and so we recommend doing a few tests, opening up the case, responding to that case. If you do tests with your own phone, just realize that there's a transcript there. And so you're sending messages that are going to be viewed by other people. So, be professional and let your staff know to be professional, right? Because you don't want to text something that is inappropriate, because then that's going to be in your transcript. And we've had a few agencies, ring us up and go, "Can I delete the text that conversation?" We don't delete. So it's not, if you do use your phone, be professional, and let your staff know, be professional. If you don't want your phone to be in the queue, then don't use your phone. Simple as that. Use one of the agency's phones or somebody else, or whatever you want to do. Choose not to use your own personal phone. If you do use your phone and you don't want to be texted in the future by mistake, you can just text stop, and that will opt you out. And when you opt out, what happens is you go to the back of the queue, and you're in opt-out status. So I don't think we have any opt-outs here. But when we do, this is what it'll look like. So when I text stop, I'll go to the back of the queue. And what happens is it stops everything from, if I try to send a message, I'm not viewing it. But if I tried to send a message, well, I don't have the text box anymore. But if I still have the text box in that moment of time, and I tried to send a message in the moment that they opted out, it would actually tell me that that message is unable to send because that user is opted out. So I can click on and view this phone number, but I can't send them any more messages. And where they are in the queue is at the back. They go to the back, right back here. So here's the very last one in the queue is the opt-out. And if somebody changes their mind and says, "Oh, I really do want to get texts from you, I'd like to opt back in," you can either tell them, go ahead and text your zip code again, or you can pop over to let me just make sure I copied that. Be the phone number, and then you go over to the admin, and then you go fully opt-in, and then you go think, and then you go think, and you select the zip code that they are in. So you might want to know their zip code. If you don't know their zip code, that's okay. You can use this keyword to opt them in. This is a way to convert a caller to a text conversation if you don't know their zip code. If you do know their zip code, then just select the zip code, and then you click the fully opt-in. This mimics the behavior of when somebody texts their zip code. That's really neat. So you can convert callers to texters really easily. And then when I'm looking at the queue, that case will be in the queue. It will be right here under past. You'll see here it's categorized slightly differently than when somebody texts their zip code from their phone. This is an app opt-in, right? We use the application to put this phone number into the queue. Therefore, we categorize it slightly differently. And so it's a light blue rather than a dark blue, 148. I should have used the same zip code so that we have that consistency. But as you see here, this came from the mobile phone. So we're going to tell you that, source SMS. This came from the application because we use that fully opt-in tool. We added that number. You can do that with anybody, any mobile number. You can be on the phone with somebody, or you can have a group of mobile numbers that have asked to get a text from you or get information from you, and you can use that tab, the fully opt-in tab. You can also use this referrals tab for doing that. And the referrals tab, what the referrals tab does is you can send people information without sending them the greeting. So you can say, for instance, 831 332 0296, and then you can put a content of the referral in here. I'm just going to take some information from here and put it into this text box. Now, this text box works exactly like the one on the users page. So if you do a phone to text referral, then just realize that whatever you put in box number 2 is the content that will go to that client. And so if I have 1,600 characters, this message is going to be split. It'll be split into 160 character messages and sent sequentially. We can actually do up to 270 now, depending on the carrier. Some carriers we can do that with, some carriers we can't. But as far as you're concerned, we will tell you that we're splitting it once you hit that 160 mark. And so 1,600 characters will do the math. That's approximately 1,600, 8, 10, 11, 12 messages. Just be mindful of how much content you're sending to the client. And then when you send it, it gives you a little update up here, watch. So I can also add a data marker if I want at the time when I do this phone to text referral. For instance, if I want to mark it by the problem or the need, and I know it's a food meal assistance, then I can go ahead and I know that it's a referral, and then I go ahead and send this. And then all that content goes out to that phone number. And that phone number is somebody I'm talking to on the phone, right? So phone to text referrals, great tool. Again, we don't update the queue the way we do when somebody asks for live help. Why? Because this is something that's happening because of the application. This is using the application to send content to a mobile number rather than that mobile number opting in to ask for help. When that mobile number sends a text, it goes to the top of the queue. So as you can imagine, and see AT&T lets us send up to 270. This is going to be less than what I had predicted, but it's still quite a bit of content. Just be mindful of the amount of content that you're sending before you send it. And if you are sending a lot of content, you might let them know, hey, I'm sending you multiple referrals, or the following, you will get a series of text messages with several referrals in them, so that you're giving them a little notice. Now, the integrated solution is, of course, going to allow you to send referrals directly out of your CRM, which is going to, it's great, wonderful. We like, though, to show you this referrals tab because before you're integrated, this is a very useful utility. Now, also, additionally, you want to know about even with integration, because here's why. Referrals tab, you can send multiple phone numbers content. You can also edit and tailor that content, which you may not be able to do with the integrated solution. It might be just select this referral, text it to them. Select that referral, text it to them. So with this referrals tab, you can retrofit and tailor that content in whatever ways you want. So some agencies really like to just free will it and use this referrals tab, in the ways that they want it, in whatever customized, tailored way they're going to use it. Just know that whatever mobile number or numbers you put into box number 1, and then whatever content you put in box number 2, that's what's going to those mobile numbers. And I can use it as many times as I want. I can use it with any number of mobile numbers. You could get a burst of calls during a time where, oh my gosh, we're getting so many calls about this topic, and oh wow, overload. And you could just be saying, hey, we know you're calling about this. Give us your mobile number. We'll text you all the information you need in about an hour. You could just compile a little list of all those mobile numbers, and an hour later, go over to the referrals tab, upload the Excel spreadsheet of that mobile number list, put that content into box number 2, and send it. Suddenly, all those mobile numbers, all those people asking for all that support, everybody has what they need. It's really neat. So referrals tab, great capacity, and something you're going to want to have a look at, learn about, and it's oftentimes a good way to get to know the system as well. Do a few phone to text referrals, see how the system works. Now, what happens when somebody texts after they get a phone to text referral? So looking at this phone number here, this 831 that I used in that example, here's all that content that they sent. And then here's how we're marking it in the system, right? It's a 211 TCNY referral. And then when we scroll over the time, that's an app referral. That was done with the application. And then here's all the delivery receipts. So we give you delivery receipts for phone to text referrals. Even integrated will have delivery receipts. So you can verify all those messages got delivered, which is really important. Now, let's say this person goes, oh, I got all these referrals, but I don't know about this particular one. The phone number was disconnected. So then they text back the phone number in that resource was disconnected. So if that happens, somebody texts after getting referrals from you, well, then we're going to update you. We're going to pop that one to the top because that one is a question that resulted from an app referral. So you may have an app referral instance that turns into a conversation. And that's how that whole continuum could happen. And so there's that message front and center, top source SMS, dark blue. And we're going to be highlighting it, notifying everybody if this is a new text in your queue. If you have notifications turned on, you'll get a notification pop-up window saying this has a new text from this phone number, hasn't been answered yet. And then it's up to your specialist or whoever is responding to the queue to decide, are we going to open this case and have a conversation with this client, or are we going to pass on it? Passing on it is not about passing from one agent to another. It's about passing on the conversation. You don't want to have a conversation with a client. Now, administrators can pass without opening. A staff member has to open the case and then pass on it so that you can audit your passes to make sure they're being used appropriately. Now, if I open this case up, well, then it's just having a conversation with the client based on that question. So what began as a phone to text referral is now a two-way conversation, and I'm helping them out. Well, looking over your referrals. Oh, okay, what referral was it? Getting that information. Okay, here's an alternative number for that referral, or if not, here's a website, or here's, so that you're providing assistance, but it stopped being a phone encounter. It started to be a texting. Okay, so conversational texting, users page. This is where all the conversations, live help, assistance happens when people text their zip code. You got live help, happens on the users page. Phone to text referrals, referrals tab. Then there's the groups tab. And the groups tab lets you build groups of clients in whatever ways you want, which is really a terrific tool. You can bulk upload the group, or you can create it based on information that you have. So I can do food assistant, or I can sort by data marker, and I can go food assistance, right? So everybody that I marked with that data marker would show up, and then I can add all, and then I can name this food bank referrals. And then now I've got a special group of clients that I marked food bank referral that now I can send content to. So super easy to use this groups tab. It's very intuitive. It's very highly customizable, and you're sort of the master of who goes into what groups and what individuals get what messages. But as you can imagine, groups tab is incredibly effective for marking certain clients and being of assistance to them down the road. So if you've got a special program where you want to provide some follow-up text to them because they're maybe high risk, you can be doing those things and doing it in a way that's really efficient and effective. And if you get a group text from the groups tab, like if I select this food bank and I say, hey, here's a resource for you, and I go up and I stick that URL in, and then if I don't pick a future date and time, it'll go out right away. If I pick a future date and time, well, then it's going to go out at that future date and time. And so, boom, group message created successfully. I get a little update up here. Goes under process, should go under process as soon as it's ready. There it is. And so there's my processed group message. Now, this is the date it was set up and time, and this is the date time it's going to go out. Who created it? Jonathan. Is it canceled? Nope. What group? Food bank referrals. Who's in it? 1. How many messages are going to go out? 1. Here's the content of the message. Do I want to cancel it? As long as I catch it before the send date, I can cancel my group message. I can also see my group messages by client. So when I look at this phone number that I assigned that group message to, show unsent, there it is in the unsent column. So there's 2 columns under the conversation. There's the sent, what is done, and then there's the unsent, what is in the future. And anything can be in there, right? Your survey could be in there 1 week from now. Your reminders that are going out to this client over the period of the next 2 months could be in there, all lined up, date, time that they're going to go out in the future. It's really neat. And if I need to cancel a group message that was assigned to a single client, I just cancel it. You sure you wish to delete this unsent outgoing? This cannot be undone. Yep. So now that group message that I created for this phone number canceled for that particular client. So you can create group messages, but then you group somebody wrong. And so you can remove them from the group, then you can also strike that particular group message for that particular client rather than striking it for everybody. So it's really neat. Groups tab is fantastic, and it's being used more and more and more. And like I said, it's very intuitive in the ways of, if you've done any marketing, if you've done any work with emailing specific groups of people, this is going to be consistent with that. So that kind of brings us full circle on why, for instance, data markers are used. You might say, well, gosh, we already entered that and it's in the CRM and we don't want to enter it again. Well, that groups tab is a reason for why you might want to enter that problem need for that particular client in that situation, so that you can quickly group them in the service down the road and not have to step outside of that to then find them in your CRM, to then find them and marry them up in PreventionPays, right? So setting and using data markers might be of value to you as part of the messaging plan that you have for everybody.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
These are clearly based on our taxonomy, but what I'm looking at right now, is that something that's been integrated from another database? You called it CRM.
No, this is just something that we...
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, this is just something that we set up as an example of a data marker in the service. And yes, it uses the taxonomy terms and but this could be something completely different. I mean, you can edit, delete these, and change it to whatever.
It would make sense for us to keep those because that's what we.
Okay.
I mean, that's how we report on a national level, is in those categories that we're looking at.
Yep. So marking clients, all I meant by that is that integration is useful to a certain extent, but there's going to be times where marking things in PreventionPays are going to be necessary because you need to get at those clients in those ways. And the best way we know how to help you do that is to data mark that client profile when they get that help. You can also group people by a note. So like, let's say you create a note and that note is created for 3 clients. Well, then you can build a group based on that note. So an example would be, let me pop open my profile and then add a note. And then I update that. Now I can search by, I can build a group based on the problem need in the data marker section, or I could build that group and include this client based on the note that I added. So go here to notes and then go, and then I'm going to get anybody that I data marked with beginning note food. And then I can add all those clients and save it, right? So food assistant. And so now I've got a group of clients because of the note that I created rather than the data marker. So there's a couple different ways that you can mark a client that makes sense to do so in PreventionPays, so that you've got that in the bank, that you've got that profile fleshed out in that way, so that you can then reach back to them and build a group based on that criteria down the road. And then if you create an ad hoc group that you don't like, delete it. No big. This grouping tool is very much a ad hoc. When we say ad hoc grouping, we mean it. I mean, it's in every sense. In the moment, we've got a group of people we need to text. Go to the Groups tab. We've got, it might be a comment. It might be starting with the Referrals tab if they've never had any contact with you before. If they've had contact with you before, pop over to the Groups tab. But how are we going to get to them? And that becomes the task, right? And so is it by zip code? Do we know the zip code that we're in? Do we know their mobile number? Or do we know a data marker that we marked for them? So it's building your group based on what knowledge you've got. And if the more fleshed out a client profile is, of course, that's the more ways you'll be able to reach them and build a group around and build a group that they go into. So the Groups tab is a really important tool. It's something that we want you guys to use, and we see that it offers a lot, not just for in the moment, but also for future content. Again, a lot of agencies are starting to look at, well, how can we provide assistance to certain people down the road? And if putting them in a little group and sending them content using the Groups tab, if that's going to help you do it in a more efficient, effective way, that's the goal of this Groups tab, is just to help you kind of up your game. Now, at any point in time, you can have a client that you hang a message on or you hang a survey on. And so we enable you to do that, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be that they then are grouped and then you send them that message in the future because you put them in a group, and you don't always have to do that, right? You can also develop content under the Reminders tab that is follow-up type content. You requested a text. This is really neat. If I don't put a group in here, right? I don't select the keyword or the zip code that I want to send it to, and I don't pick a date and time for it to go out. I just say that it's active and manually schedulable. Well, then guess what? Now I've got that message to hang on a client under my, and let me hide this top part. Oh, I don't want to hide it all. I just want to hide the attributes so you can see now. Okay. And so here under surveys and series, guess what? I've got that message now. Hi, you get the text from us. How are you doing today? Then I can hang this on this client, right? So I can put a delay in there. I can either have it go out right away, or I can say delay 5 days or hours or minutes. So I'll go days. So now I've got an unsent message. Guess where it is? My unsent. There it is. Going out at that time. Scheduled to go out at that time. Really neat. So thinking about clients, what type of client you have, what are their needs? Do you have follow-up protocol? Do you want follow-up protocol? Do you want surveys? What surveys? So all these things, canned messages. What do we want to do with that? How do we want to flesh that out? Do we want to give frontline specialists canned message privileges? If so, who are the ones that are going to have it? All these decisions you guys are going to have ahead of you. And then once you make all these decisions about how you're going to help your clients, and some of these decisions, of course, don't need to be made in order to launch, right? Some of these decisions are going to come about just by virtue of you guys being who you are and coming up with new innovative ways to reach people. But the getting started, as we discussed, looking at the data markers, looking at the canned messages, those areas are, really going to help you guys get things going, get things rolling. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's going to take a little bit of investigation on your side. Looking at the documents that we put up in the folder, but also administrators will really benefit from just doing a little conversation, opting in or having somebody opt in and open up the case, respond to the person, get a sense for how it works, and then have a look around, go to the different tabs and just see what's there, right? These auto responses now, these are your after hours messages, right? These are the messages for a holiday, right? Anything that is gonna be during a time when you can't respond. And so we'll help you set up auto responses for all your holidays, all your after hours, whatever you need. But we also, encourage you to have a look at this sub-tab, see how it works, because there might come a time where you put an auto response up and you go, oh no, we put it on the wrong date and everybody's getting the auto response and we're actually here. And you're going, well, how do we get to it? Well, you just go to auto responses and it'll be there and you can edit it and then you can deactivate it and then it goes off for whatever. I mean, it's kind of the turn off, for the alarm system. It just kind of shuts it all down. And so just deactivate it and then it won't go out anymore. So auto responses, that's all you're after. These aren't your opt-in messages. These are your after hours or away messages or holiday messages or anything, downtime, staff meeting, whatever you guys have going on. Auto responses will assist you with that, and that's how you access it under the admin tools. And you might not give a specialist permission to see some of these sub-tabs, right? Again, that's why we have that staff creation guide. We're defining each sub-tabs and what they have editing privileges over or don't. Canned responses. This isn't about whether or not you see them when you're having a conversation with the client. This is about editing them. And so if you give staff, a specialist, the ability to create their own canned messages, well, then when they click the admin tab, they're going to see the canned message sub-tab. They will be able to enter canned messages for their uses only. They won't be able to edit the general libraries. They would only be able to edit the general libraries if you gave them that specific permission to edit general libraries. There's two different options. You can have personal canned libraries or you can have personal and general. Administrators by default have personal and general. Administrators also, when they click canned responses, they see everybody's. So they, you can always look over, if you say you give a specialist permission to create their own canned libraries, and you give them instructions on how to do that, and then they don't follow those instructions and do a bunch of messages that are incongruent with what you want, then you can pop over to the canned responses and just check it out and see what they put in, and make corrections or let them know that they need to make some changes. Right? So administrators always have complete surveillance over everything. Double responses. Now, this is invitation-based texting. So this is if you've got a group of clients. Sometimes you partner with an agency. They say, we've been collecting phone numbers forever. We've been collecting mobile phone numbers since mobile phone numbers were around, and we've got this list, and we're not sure if they are even real, or if they're legitimate, or if they're still the person who it's supposed to be. Well, you can use double responses to validate mobile numbers, right? You can use, and what the double response does is it sends out whatever text you put in here as an invitation, and you can use it one time per mobile number. So you could send any group of mobile numbers an invitation to opt into a program. Hi, we think that you would be interested in this, or your mobile number was provided to us because we work with an agency that you guys, or that you received help from, and would you like to get information from us about this? So neat tool and wonderful help for a list that you're unsure about. If you're sure about it and you want to just start texting with or send them information, you can just pop over to the fully opt-in and then upload your Excel spreadsheet with that group of mobile numbers, and in they go. And if you don't know the zip code that they're going to be opted into, well, then you can just use one of your silent keywords, right? And then, but yeah, the double responses is really neat, because it seems like there always is sometimes a case where you've got a group of mobile numbers where you're unsure. And if you're unsure about consent, well, this is the tool that lets you, without consent, invite them to opt in to get information from you. And then the markers. This is where you edit the data markers. You can give somebody permission to edit the data markers. So you could give a specialist, for instance, permission to edit the data markers. And whatever appears here is going to be visible on while you're responding to a case, right? In the what we refer to. This is the inspector, what we would call the inspector. It's just the box that contains all of the elements that are related to the phone number we're looking at. So when we add data markers under admin data markers, well, they appear in the inspector as options. So if I go data marker new, and I say gender, and I could do a pull down, I could save it, and I could go, and then I can go, and I could go something like that, right? And I make it active, and then guess what? Now in my inspector, I've got gender as an option. Super simple. Super simple. And so when I update that, now I've got food, meals, problem, need, and I've got gender, right? So data markers, whatever you put there, anyone can edit them. I mean, if you give them permission to do so, and then whatever appears here is going to appear in the inspector as an option. So again, also in line with canned messages, if you don't want to use certain canned messages, you turn them off. If you don't want to use certain data markers, you can turn them off. You don't have to just delete them or remove them. You just edit and deactivate them, so that that data marker doesn't bother people 8 months out of the year when you're not using it. All right, guys, that's kind of a crash course on all of the things that I wanted to go over. we talked about reports, and without actually seeing them. Reports are in 3 styles: the manual reports, automated reports, and then an export. You can also run combined reports. So you can do a couple reports for a couple different queues. Right now, you guys have one queue, your INR queue, but at some point in the future, you're probably going to have additional queues. Like if you do a group texting program that you don't want to have associated to the INR live help that you're providing, we would set up a different queue. For reports, you can run you can run a report for both queues, right? You can run an encounters report for your INR queue, and you can run an encounters report for your programs queue. Manual reports is a defined period of time. So all the reports here that are in the reports description guide, I recommend you have a look at that reports description guide. And then the manual is just defining the time frame that you'd like and then creating that report. So I can run an encounters report. Go see that encounters report. I can run it from November 1 to November 30, right? And I just create that report. And then tonight after midnight, it'll run. I get an email update that tells me, hey, your encounters report for November 1 to November 30 has completed. I click that link and boom, I've got my report. Excel spreadsheet, neat, tidy, all the encounters that happened during that month.
Automated time, John, is the turnaround time usually like the next day, or do you run into certain times of like year or month where it might take longer if we needed a report?
No, encounters report, if you do if you do a report that is manual, so you can go as far back as a year. So that's how much data you could have in one report. You can go beyond a year, but it would have to be the year before the year. So 2016, January 2016 to January 2017. And so, but in chunks of years, and then that the manual reports will always run the night you created it. So the same night you created it, it will run, and then it'll be available for you the next day. Now, that's the automated reports is where we get into a frequency that's preset. So you can run, say, that same report, that encounters report, and that's how we talked about at the beginning, where we said you could run it as many instances as you want. You could run a yesterday's encounters report. You could run an encounters report for last week. And then now what I'm going to get is going back to new. It tells you right down here the frequency they run. Yesterday's report will run daily, right? So that I can have up to yesterday's information always, right? Because it's always going to be yesterday's data running every night. Or weekly will run every Monday. So I will get last week's encounters on each Monday. And then month would run on the first of every month, or last 6 months last year, so that you could set up, like I could have an encounters report for each one of these frequencies. And then on the first of the month, guess what I'm going to get? I'm going to get last month's data in an Excel spreadsheet. Then I'm going to get the last 6 months of data in an Excel spreadsheet. And then I'm going to get the last year of data in an Excel spreadsheet. Does that make sense?
Yep, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. And then, but understanding just that basic how it runs, right? And then as far as what content is in them, well, that reports description document is going to give you those details. And so that's going to be an important document to have a look at, because that really is the beginning of how you then decide, well, what reports are we going to run? There's some esoteric reports in the canned reports here, like unroutables, right? You may never want to run that report, but it's there for you. And that's just if a phone number isn't routable. If it's a landline, for instance, like sometimes you put in a mobile number, or you think you're putting in a mobile number as a landline. Well, we let you know when that isn't a mobile number. We'll tell you, and it'll mark it as unroutable. And then you can run an unroutables report just so that you can know, well, here, out of all these phone numbers that we have been, or we put in last month to send referrals to, this is how many were landlines, so that you can, I guess, know that detail if you wanted to. But yeah, if there's ever a situation where we can't send the text to the number that was provided, the number that you entered, then it gets marked unroutable.
Okay, great.
A lot of information.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot.
It is.
But it's great. So
Good.
So if you're at the point that you've presented everything, I think we should just get into our questions, and then if I have
let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think we just have a couple.
All right.
Mine was just about format. Now, with the referrals that you make to the people texting us, I have seen some that have come across a bit sloppy through PreventionPays. They just don't look like super neat, and I just don't know if it is probably their system coming, the way it's coming through my phone is kind of wacky. Like there's some weird looking links and stuff like that.
How did you do it? What did you do?
I texted of the Vermont 211, and I was with the Vermont director, and I asked them for food pantries, and it's just the way that the responses came back were kind of weird. I mean, I was able to get through it, but it was into the Vermont 211, so we wouldn't see it here.
What do you mean they were weird?
The response that I got had the language was not very easily follow. I could not follow.
Oh,
so.
Well then that's them, right? That's them. That's them,
and they're me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So
right. Well, if we encounter anything, we can just kind of cover it, when we're playing around with the system. So that's fine.
Yeah. Now, if there's something happening in the translation, if there's something that happens in the translation of the information, so like let's say you copy something from a database and you put it into a text and you send that text and that somehow gets messed up, we want to know about that. We want to know, well, because what we do is we're making it ready to be texted, in that, like, let's say you copy a resource from your CRM, right, your iCarol. It's going to show up in this box. It's all spread out, right? It's going to have extra space. It's going to have extra line breaks. It's going to be all kind of all over the place. Well, we take the care to reduce that and organize it and send it as a text message so that you don't have to format it. But in the translation process, something could go wrong, right? In getting it ready to send, something could like an HTML could be missed or something like that, where we want to know, well, we did this and this didn't work the way we thought it was going to work, and it came out this way, and so let us know,
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then that was it for me. I think Lynn had a question too about.
Yeah. Okay. Just real quick. I know that on my cell phone, when I receive a text message that's lengthy, and it's divided into different texts to get to me, a lot of times those texts are out of order and out of sequence for how they were, intended in the conversation. And what I'm looking at on your screen is your sequence runs from bottom to top. Is that correct?
Right. So the first message.
So the oldest one is further down. So it scrolls down as it goes. Have you ever had that come out of sequence?
Oh, yeah. And we actually have an open ticket with our mobile partner, so that we're working on that, and that we're working on making that better. Now, what happens is there will be times where a message we send as a group of messages, a sequence of messages that are supposed to be in this sequence, and the carrier will goof it up. The carrier will hold on to one and then send the other, and for various reasons. We're working on making that as foolproof and as right on, dead on as possible. but yeah, there
like the key,
where
the key to this is brevity, then. You know,
I mean, if that's I suppose, I mean, if you've got a lot of content that you want to send, then you can do one of two things. You can either send all that content in one text message and rely on it to be broken up and sent sequentially in the right order, or you can go ahead and do it yourself and manually break
it up. Yeah. Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Because I know with a lot of the content that we have, sometimes not having it in the correct order could put a whole different meaning on it.
Could put a different meaning on it. Exactly right. That's exactly right. So, we really want to make sure that that's as good as possible. And so we are continually working on that component, not just the content that gets broken up from our side that you're sending to end users, but also the content that gets broken up from the end user who is sending a lot of content to you. So we're on both sides of the fence. We're working on making it as good as possible.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really all I have.
Okay.
It's going to require lots of playing with it. Lots of experimentation.
Sure. Yeah. Experimentation and you just kind of get a feel for it. Run some reports and whatever. Give the tabs a couple of different shots. If you think that there's going to be some group texting in the future, create a group and see how it works, and set that group up and set a future message to go out to it. See how that works, and just kind of play around with it. And no harm. I mean, you're not going to break anything, right? And you're not going to getting a text message on your phone or getting a bunch of text messages. It's not a big deal. Just know that if you do use your personal phone, that it's going to be legible and it'll be seen by others.
Mine's already in there.
All right. You can't unring that bell.
Yeah, it's already there. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, we had a client one time that, they were like on their bike and in a panic calling up while riding their bike somewhere, and it was like, "Can you delete the message that I just sent? Oh my God, I can't believe I can't let my administrator see it." I was like, first park your bike somewhere and let's talk about this rationally. Don't text while biking.
Oh boy.
Right. I just saw the other day on the driving home and the house that has this big fence to the right, this enormous fence to block out the traffic, and this fence was all smashed up, and the bits that were still there, somebody had used spray paint and said, "Stop texting." So, kind of gave it away what happened to his fence, right?
Yeah, not a lot of imagination there. Okay.
No, not a lot of imagination. I definitely got the point across.
Absolutely.
So guys, okay, well,